This is Pastor Mark coming again, 8 a.m. Glad to be with you and excited to share some more of God's Word with you. We're going to be in 1 Peter 3:7. We're just going to take one verse and kind of expand on it and see what we can get out of it. Hope you're having fun reading through 1 Peter. I just think it's a great book for times like these, as there are hard times and moments of suffering and anxiety and what it looks like to live as Christians, man, just as exiles, as people whose world is not this place, that we have a hope and a future that is better. In other words, like, this is not as good as it gets for the Christian. Praise the Lord. I'm excited to get to that. Let me just run through a few things we've got going on. As always, we'd love for you to join our newsletter, our Facebook, following our YouTube. We have a bunch of quarantine conversations tomorrow night, actually. Got a guy named Adam Griffin. He's the lead pastor of East Side Church in Dallas, Texas. He is just a man who is wise, godly, hilarious, and he's passionate about family discipleship. And I asked him to come on, and he's a friend of mine, and he's written a book called Family Discipleship with a guy named Matt Chandler. You may have heard of him from the Village Church, and they're good friends and co-laborers in Christ. And so Adam's going to come and kind of give us a sense of what family discipleship is, but also like what it looks like to disciple your family in the middle of a pandemic. And so he's going to spend some time, and you will not regret that. That's tomorrow at 7:30. We'll have it live streamed on our Facebook and YouTube. Would love to have it. Or if you've got some homeschooling questions, or if you've got some budgeting questions, we've done a ton. We've done 3 or 4 of these, that we're going to do some more as well in these quarantine conversations to help equip you to live rightly in these times. And so I would love for you to subscribe to our Facebook, YouTube, or newsletter to hear from us. One other thing we're doing is we have some connections in town with some nurses and doctors. We would love it. We would love it if you would involve yourself in this with us. We are going to give some care baskets to doctors and nurses, as it doesn't look like in Missoula or in Montana anytime soon the COVID-19 pandemic is going to slow down. And so would you be willing to maybe donate some money, a small sum, or donate some, we got a list of things that are going to in a care basket that we can put in a nurse lounge or a doctor's lounge, so they can have like healthy food to eat, and they can have something that would encourage them after these long shifts. And so would you just pray about that? And if you're ready to be involved, you can text the word basket to 406-206-1988, just right there below. You text that in, and Mark Resch, our student pastor, will get a hold of you and help mobilize you for that. And we're excited as a church that we get to do this. And so would you just join us in helping nurses and doctors in Missoula? One other thing is we're looking as a church to just move out of our houses, move out into the community in whatever way we can. And so for the whole month of April, we're going to spend Wednesdays walking out and praying for the city. And we're going to do that at 6 p.m. And we've asked some other churches to join us. Who knows if they will? It doesn't really matter. This isn't a church at the gates thing. This is a Christian thing where you get out in the community and you begin to pray for your neighbors. And I can't think of anything greater than Christians walking around their neighborhoods, walking around their city, praying for the gospel of Jesus Christ to be known and his name to grow here, but also praying for healing and praying for businesses that are going out of business, and just all of the needs. And so Christians, we'd invite you to do that at 6 p.m. And if you want to take a picture of your family or a video and you want to hashtag it on Instagram or Facebook, just hashtag Wednesday Walkout, and we'd love to celebrate what you are doing for the Lord here in Missoula. All right, 1 Peter 3:7. Let's load up our screen here so we can see it. Where to go? Sorry, guys. So we're looking at the 3rd chapter. Let me pull it up here. Okay, so before we do that, we're going to look at 3 things. And my goal in this is to kind of teach you, just walk through some steps of Bible interpretation so that you can see what I'm seeing in the text. And you realize I'm not making it up, but it's how we kind of mine into the text to find the nuggets of truth and gold that are there. And so I want to model that for you so you can see how it works, so you can begin to do this in your own life and grow. And so what we're going to do is we're going to observe, which is basically all we're going to do today. There's a ton of ways you can observe, but one thing we're going to do is we're just going to highlight how to find terms that need definition. If we're going to understand phrases and we're going to understand sentences, we need to understand words. And so that seems relatively like basic, but a lot of us just skip by defining really critical terms. And so the interpretation, what we're going to do is we're going to define them. So we're going to identify them in observation, say, hey, that I don't know. And then I'm going to give you a simple way that I use when I'm doing sermon prep to kind of help define kind of the meaning of a word. And then we're going to ask the three questions. Is there a command to obey? Is there an example to follow? Is there a verse to memorize? So 1 Peter 3:7 says this. Likewise, husbands, live with your wives in an understanding way, showing honor to the woman as the weaker vessel, since they are heirs with you of the grace of life, so that your prayers may not be hindered. Okay, so there's a ton going on in this one verse. It's one long verse with some sub-clauses, and you can see the clauses kind of broken out by commas, okay? And so what we'll do is just kind of off the bat, look at the word likewise. Now, likewise is a transition word that kind of says, or in the same way is what they're saying, or following the same thought. And so what the likewise is here is the first six verses of chapter 3 are dealing with the wives' relationship with the husbands. Wives, submit to your husband, and then gives a bunch of other instructions on how wives are to act as Christian wives. And then verse 7, he starts with the word likewise. Now, he's not saying likewise, husbands submit to the wives. He's saying likewise, like I did in verse 1, I'm introducing a command for the other party of marriage. It says, likewise, husbands, you're about to be commanded to do something. Likewise, husbands, you got some work to do. So this is likewise, husbands, live with your wives in an understanding way, showing honor to the woman as the weaker vessel, since they are heirs with you of the grace of life, so that your prayers may not be hindered. So what we're going to do is just going to slowly go through this, and we're going to highlight some words or some phrases that need definition. And so what I'm doing is I'm looking for words that seem that I might understand but need more definition, or that I have no idea what it means at all, that I need a basic definition for. And so if we just kind of go through, likewise, husbands, live with your wives in an understanding way. So I have some sense of what an understanding way is, but that's not narrow enough for me to feel like I can apply that. I want to kind of get the realm, or Bible teachers call it the semantic domain. Like, how large is the range that word understanding can mean? And so we're going to take a look at that, because we don't know what the Greek word is behind it. And so what are we going to do to kind of get that? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to highlight that one yellow. Okay. So we need understanding. We need to understanding. Great. Showing honor to the woman as the weaker vessel. Whoa. Okay, so that's some interesting language. So showing honor. Let's kind of highlight that as well. We don't use that type of phrase. Like I don't ever say you've shown me honor in an honor and shame culture, like you see in many Asian cultures, and frankly the culture that this was written to. Honor and shame is a big deal. We don't really deal in honor and shame in the Western society. And so this is kind of it's a foreign phrase. And then you've got the weaker vessel. Okay, showing honor to the woman as the weaker vessel. So if you were a woman and someone called you a weaker vessel, you might kind of look like that, right? And so we're just going to keep that there. We don't know what weaker vessel is, but no one likes being called weak. And so we're going to highlight that, because we need to know what weaker vessel means, and see if we can turn that frown upside down. Because I think we can. I think there's real good kind of wisdom and clarity there, since they are heirs, and heirs we don't really use very often. So let's kind of define that one as well. With you, the grace of life. Grace of life. I mean, First Peter's been talking about grace a ton, and most of the grace of life, the grace that First Peter talks about is the grace that is to come when Jesus is revealed in the second coming. Most of the hope in First Peter, if you haven't noticed it, it's all aimed at the second coming of Christ. That eschatologically, which is the study of the end times. That's what should drive much of our hope now. Nothing kind of in front of us, but what Jesus has promised to do and how he's promised to come back. So heirs, the grace of life, so that your prayers may not be hindered. And so I think it may be helpful to kind of look at the word hindered here and kind of get a sense for what that means. So we're looking at 1 Peter 3:7. And what we're doing right now, if you just joined us, we're kind of highlighting words that need definition. All we're doing is observing, hey, here's some words that seem unclear or that could need some help. If we're ever going to apply this, we need to know the definitions of these. So we're looking at understanding, we're looking at showing honor, we're looking at weaker vessel with a sad face. We're looking at heirs, kind of what that means. We're looking at hindered. So let's kind of scroll down. I kind of created this. So understanding, showing honor, a weaker vessel with a frowny face, heirs, and hindered. what we're going to do is, before we even kind of like, I don't want to give any definitions to these. What I find is helpful is to see how other people have defined, or how other translations kind of tease them out. And so what I'm going to put this off to the left here. I'm going to go to a place called Bible Hub, which is this place right here. And what it is you can see I got 1 Peter 3:7 right here. And these are just different translations, with the New International Version, the New Living Translation, English Standard Version, Green Study Bible. I mean, it just goes on and on and on, ton of translations. And so what I do is I'll pick like the same 3 or 4 or 5. I look at the NIV, I look at the NET, I look at the NLT. I already use the ESV, so it's already in there. I'll look at the Holman Christian Standard Bible, this one right here, which is the good old Baptist translation of it. You'll find every denomination or major branch of theology has their own translation or whatever. Now, just as a caveat, let me just pull this up. I would encourage you never to use the Passion Translation. It's not a translation; it's a guy who is out of a New Apostolic Reformation, who believed God is not done revealing His Word and His prophecies, and that basically the canon of Scripture needs to be reinterpreted in light of today and added to today. And so it looks good and it sounds flowery, and it's very out of the Bethel Church kind of mode of theology, which has a bunch of dangerous. So we don't have time for that this morning, but I would encourage you, if you have a Passion Translation Bible, I would just set that to the side. An ESV, an NASB, an NIV, an NLT. There's plenty, an NET. I could keep going on. There's a ton of really great translations that are really useful. The Passion Translation, however, from my perspective, would not fall under any branch of normal translations out there. And it's for my money, it's a pretty dangerous translation. So that's neither here nor there, and that's just for free. So let's kind of see if we can zoom in here. Do this. Zoom in a little bit more so you can see it. Okay, so if we go up to the New International Version, right? And so we're looking at the words understanding, we're looking at showing honor, we're looking at heirs. And so all we're doing here is trying to see how they're said differently. Do they use the word understanding? Do they use weaker vessel? Do they use hindered? And so we're beginning to see the different ways this particular Greek word can be translated without having to know Greek. And so this is a great kind of Bible study tool if you've never used it before, to grab Bible Hub, BibleHub.com, and put in the verse. So the New International Version says, "Husbands, in the same way, be considerate." Okay, so that's what I do. I'll just put be considerate, right? As you live with your wives, and treat them with respect. And so we're looking at with respect, okay, as the weaker partner. So that doesn't help. It just says weaker partner. That doesn't make me feel any better. As heirs in the same word, with you of the gracious gift of life. So they've kind of taken the word grace, grace of life, and expanded a little bit so that nothing will hinder your prayers. And so hinder still is not defined in any way. And so this is the New Living Translation. I love the New Living Translation. I think it's one of my favorite ones to read. I feel like they do a great job of kind of that balance between the rigidity of the text and kind of the how it needs to be translated in order for English to actually come out of that. In the same way, your husbands must give honor to your wives. Treat your wife with understanding as you live together. She may be weaker than you are, but she is your equal partner. Okay, so be weaker. In almost in the physical sense, right? She may be weaker than you are. That's how I take it there. But she is your equal partner in God's gift of new life. Treat her as you should, and your prayers will not be hindered. Great. She's an equal partner in God's gift of new life. So heirs, equal partner, should be an equal share of God's new life, maybe. ESV we've already done. Let's look at the New American Standard Bible, which is very good. Your husband's in the same way, live with your wife in an understanding way. Okay, same one. She is as with someone weaker, since she is a woman. So that seems to be really highlighting there the physical aspect. New King James Version, giving honor to the wife, the weaker vessel, dwell with them with understanding, according to knowledge. Holman Christian Standard Bible. Where's that sucker at? There we go. In the same way, live with your wives with an understanding of their weaker nature, showing them honor as co-heirs of the grace of God. Okay, so we've kind of got this, understanding. This be considerate is the only thing that's different. Showing honor, we've seen respect kind of show up here. Weaker vessel has to do with a weaker partner, and it looks like they're translating it as weaker physically, and then hindered. No one's using anything different, but heirs have been equal partners. So this kind of gives us a better sense of kind of what that is. And so understanding, at the very least, if we're going to talk about understanding and consider it means you must live thoughtfully, right? You can't live not thoughtless. All right, so when we're talking about living in an understanding way, it means husbands, like, you don't get to kind of turn off when it comes to your wife's needs and who she is and how she's made. That you have to live thoughtfully and intentionally about it. I think that's kind of the whole point. With showing honor, treat her with honor, treat her with respect. In other words, like the way that your wife feels and experiences honor and respect is when you live with her in a way that's considerate to who she is and how she's made. And the weaker vessel thing is kind of interesting. There's a ton of different ways this has been understood, and the primary way is physical weakness. That you look at a man and look at a woman, and like biologically we know testosterone and muscle mass and lean muscle mass, all that. Like, men are designed by God to be biologically different, and like it doesn't really matter what culture says. They're like, that's just fact. You can deny it, but it is undeniable fact that men are created differently and biologically different than females. And so and on the whole, like the rule is that men tend to be stronger physically, right? And so there are some exceptions to that, but those are fewer and farther between. But the general rule is that men are stronger than women, generally speaking. The other part of this, the other thing that's interesting is a cultural piece that was there kind of in the time of Peter when he wrote this. Like, the women had no legal right, no legal authority. They were thought of a lot as property. That their status was also weak in society. And so I don't think it's just physical weakness that Peter's getting at. I think Peter's, because if you're going to be understanding of your wife, right, and you're a first century Christian and your wife is weaker than you physically, that's great. But what if your wife is often dismissed, doesn't have rights, is viewed as property, can't go to court? Like, there's a lot that women could not do as co-heirs in Christ, that they weren't equal in society. And so I don't think it's just about physical weakness here. I think what Peter is doing is trying to flip a cultural norm on its head, that husbands, Christian husbands, did not have the luxury of treating their wives like the ancient husbands would. That they had to treat them better. They had to love them. They had to be considerate. They had to understand who they were and advocate for them and to shepherd them and to care for them in ways that other non-Christian husbands didn't have to. And so, yeah, they're weaker physically, but I think that misses the point. I think what Peter is kind of doing is he's beginning to flip culture on his head and saying Christian husbands need to be different in the way that they love their wives. And I think that's ultimately what we're talking about here. It's not just weaker physically, but weaker in status or stature in society. And we actually see some of that today still. There are areas where women are dismissed, and that's not. I don't think it's as big a deal as people have made it to be, but it definitely is for sure. Like, it's present that sexism and looking down on women is a thing. And so can we kind of get like understanding, showing honor, weaker vessel, heirs, which is to receive something after death. Death, you are an heir to something. Someone's died, you get this. You are entitled to it because you are son or daughter. Hindered means to be stopped or to be slowed or to be impeded in some way. And so you've checked other Bible translations and done all that. Let's kind of look at some principles and applications. Okay. So number one, if you're gonna do this, you need to understand first and fix second. And most of what we'll do is we'll listen for a problem, we'll listen to our wives, and we'll think we're understanding. And our first goal is to try to fix things. And here's the thing, like, all that exposes in us, and it is active love, and it can be loving, but all that exposes in us as husbands is our own emotional immaturity and inability to connect. If all we're trying to do is to fix problems, which again, it could be out of a good heart, like it just shows our own inability to emotionally process and emotionally help someone process something. And so, husbands, the very first thing you need to apply from this is you need to understand first and fix second, or maybe not even at all. And so what that means is you need to understand where your wife is prone to disbelieve the promises of God. Like every woman is made differently and grown differently and has different backgrounds. And so men, like your job as the husband, as the spiritual leader, is to understand where your wife is weak in faith and to encourage that and to bolster that with the word of God and to be there and to champion faith and hope for her when she doesn't, when she's anxious and when she's worried and when she's distraught. Your job isn't trying to fix it. Your job is to encourage her and listen to her and show her who Jesus is. You also need to be able to understand where your wife is prone to be discouraged. There are going to be things in life, relationship in life, with work or with money or with kids where your wife will be more prone to be discouraged than otherwise. Your job is to help limit that. Your job is to know those things and like a marriage ninja, get in there and try to remove as many obstacles to discouragement so that she may live as free of discouragement as possible because you are advocating and actively trying to remove those things in her life. And you can think of like, if part of this is physical, then you need to at least recognize that there are some physical hindrances to being a woman. And like there's a ton. And I would like pretty much hate to be a woman for a lot of reasons, not the least of which is just the constant physical toll. Like I would never want to have a baby or carry a baby around or any of the other stuff that women deal with physiologically. And then there's just like, man, their bodies are so complicated and intricate. And it's like, there's just so much there. Men, we need to understand that. Like we're more just like sledgehammers. They're like scalpels, beautifully crafted scalpels. We're just kind of these ugly sledgehammers. We need to understand the physical hindrances and love them in that. I think also, too, we need to understand where they're being prone to be ignored or dismissed. Like, where is your wife being belittled? Is it at work? Is it at home from you? Is it from your kids? Where is your wife being ignored? Where is her status less than? And then your job is to advocate for her. Your job is to encourage her. Your job is to fight for her in those. And so you're going to understand first and fix second. I want to give you a tool that's been helpful to me. I call it the Grace and Truth Spectrum. It's from John Townsend. It's 4 quadrants of relational nutrients. And so over here, there's be present, then quadrant 2, convey the good, then provide reality, call to action. If you were to think about this in a biblical way, this is high grace. And it goes high grace, high grace, high grace. And then it comes down here, it goes truth, 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 high truth. And usually we sit over here and we're in high truth. Okay, I want to give you some advice. I want to provide a framework for you to live. I want to challenge you to do something different. When a lot of what our wives need from us is grace and the grace of presence to contain, man, they just need you to vent, or they just need to vent to you and just to listen. They don't need you to fix it. Man, sometimes they just need you to validate that, like, yeah, that's a legitimate feeling to have. Like, there's so much here that you can begin to employ as a man to grow in your ability to understand your wife. So that's something I would encourage you to do. That's John Townsend. These are relational nutrients. It's just relationalnutrients.com. You can check it out and you can see how to be a man of grace and truth for your wife. Another thing is I would encourage you to get an emotion wheel, you big lovable brick. There are more emotions than fine and good. And let me kind of see if I can illustrate that. What is this? Okay, I'm going to minimize like 100 days. Here we go. Right. So this is an emotion wheel, and what it does is it kind of gives on the outside are like core emotions, on the inside are like base level emotions. I feel sad. Well, okay, what kind of sad? Well, I'm bored. You know why you're bored? Because you don't have any purpose, and that's sad. And so men, like, find these words on the outside, how you feel about certain things, and be able to communicate those to your wife. Like, that is so unbelievably powerful that you're able to communicate in that way. So get an emotion wheel, you big lovable brick. Second, pray unhindered. So first is one, application, understand first, fix second. Pray unhindered. God will not reward a man who abuses his position as husband. God has put you in authority over someone who is equal. Someone who's equal. And the whole purpose is that you would love your wife, you would show honor to her as a weaker vessel, someone who might have weaker, less stature and a weaker physical body. so that as a way that you show that your authority is not being abused, it's being yielded rightly. God's not going to reward you if you abuse your power in your relationship or ignore it. Your prayers are going to bounce off the ceiling. So pray for your wife, pray for her to grow spiritually, pray for protection as she's more vulnerable to some things because she is not only physically weaker, but maybe in status weaker. Pray for grace for her to grow. Pray for yourself to grow in understanding, to grow in grace, to grow in sacrificial love. That, like husbands, you need to grow in the way that you love your wives. And so that's 1 Peter 1, 3 through 7, and a bunch of tools. I think this weaker vessel thing, I think this has to do with physical, but also just the nature of status. And it's meant to flip. Man, husbands, you are to love your wives differently than the world does. Husbands, if we love our wives as the world does, man, we have lost the battle. And that's why our prayers are going unanswered by the Lord. They're being hindered by our own disobedience. All right, fam. It's been good talking to you. It's been 26 minutes. Hope you've stuck around. We're excited. Don't forget the prayer walk tonight. Get out there, 6 o'clock p.m. If you want to join us in helping doctors and nurses, text the baskets to 406-206-1988. We will see you Friday, 1 Peter 5. Keep reading. Y'all are doing great.